Hello, welcome to Effective Networking Strategies for Women. We welcome today Diana Willis, founder of the Pendolino Group, to lead us through today's presentation. Diana?
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate that you're all here today, and I'm excited about diving into this particular topic of effective networking strategies for women. Now, let's be honest. Strategies around networking really do apply regardless of whether you're male or female or anything in between. And I really want to make sure that what we're focused on is how to leverage this really important aspect of relationships and networking so that you can build powerful relationships and move beyond the small talk that opens doors and starts building relationships, but really get into those meaningful connections that are areas that you can use to supercharge your career and supercharge what you're doing for your life. So let's go ahead and let's dive into this and take a look in part one of the particular areas around effective networking and things that I think you'll find very, very interesting. Now, if you're interested also in going a little bit deeper and connecting up with somebody off of our team to explore this a bit further for yourself, for your own career, please feel free to connect up with us through the Pendolino Group. And we also have a community that we're building that we're really excited about. It's called the Entrepreneur's Journey. You may be an intrapreneur inside of a corporate environment, or you may have your own company or be thinking of starting your own organization or going into consulting. The Entrepreneur's Journey community is a great spot to connect with us. Let's dive in. So our journey today, what I want you to do is just kind of take away this one key element that says it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know. In other words, when there are people that are there who know what you're passionate about, who know what you do really well, who know where you're interested in going, and those people know that about you, they know your story, they're able to spread that word. And one of the things that's important about that is that not only does it give you credibility, but it also gives you the ability to spread your word wider and faster. So keep that in mind. It's not what you know, it's who knows what you know. So let's dive on in. Here are the areas that we're going to talk a little bit about over the next 30 minutes. First off, building assertiveness and confidence in networking. So who here has had that experience where you've walked into a room and you know there's some great people for you to meet, but you walk through that door and all of a sudden you just feel yourself starting to shrink. And that voice gets going in your mind that's saying, who do I know? Who's familiar here? Maybe I'll go stand next to them. Or maybe I'll go find the food table and I'll hide over in that corner and somebody will come to me. So first off, we're going to talk a little bit about how to build assertiveness and confidence in networking, some of the tips and things that you can do around that. Next will be in the area of overcoming common challenges in networking that are faced by women. What are some of those things that are unique for women in the work environment? Some of those things that are common challenges. And one of the things that's beautiful about it being a common challenge is that many of us have already overcome it. And so you're going to find some great tips and tricks in here as well. Then we'll move on to balancing networking with other professional and personal commitments. I hear this all the time. I don't have time to get out there. I have all of these other aspects to take care of in my work and in my life. Where am I ever going to find the time to not only go out and network and meet people, but then what do I do following up afterwards? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then, of course, one of those areas that I think is really a favorite for many of our participants, and that is how do I leverage digital platforms for networking? So we'll do a quick dive into that as well. And wrapping up the 30 minutes, and as you can tell, there'll be a lot in this 30 minutes, we're going to talk about navigating male-dominated industries through networks. So for example, in the robotics industry, there's only about 13% or so of the employees in the robotics industry that are women, that are female. So there are many industries that are still very male dominated. And there's some unique things that we can do as women in those environments to be able to navigate effectively in those spaces as we're the pioneers in those spaces. So let's go ahead and dive on in. All right, first off, building assertiveness and confidence in networking. So what are some of the things that we can do? And you're going to notice that I'm going to give you a lot of tips and tricks. Some of the things that I've learned along the way, and very importantly, some of the things that my mentors have learned along the way that they taught me. So these are practices that work. So first off, some of the things you can do to just get right to it and build your assertiveness, build your confidence in networking. Get out there and speak on a regular basis. Now, you might think, well, what does that have to do with networking? Let me give you a really great example. Early in my career, I was in training and development, and I would get up in front of the room and I would really just stretch myself, to share information, to share stories, to be able to tell a little bit of a message that people could relate to. And then fast forward a couple weeks later, I might be walking down the hallway and somebody would say, "Hey, Diana, how are you doing?" And I got to be honest, I didn't know who they were. I didn't recognize them. Turns out they were in one of the classes that I was teaching. They got to know me. And here I was practicing my confidence in sharing my message. So this is one of those subtle ways. If you put yourself on the stage, and I know even public speaking can be one of those challenging areas, but if we think about it, many times networking is a public experience. It may be a one-on-one or it may be a one-on-two, but if you'll notice, there are a lot of similarities there. So that is one of the things that I would really recommend focusing on. Challenge yourself in that area, and you will see your assertiveness and your confidence skyrocket. All right. A couple of other things in here: seek constructive feedback. So in constructive feedback, one of the things that can be incredibly powerful is to have somebody that you're working with. And I like to call that your wingman or your wingwoman. So early, again, one of the things that I learned to do was that I would go to networking events with friends. And those friends, we had this pact. And our agreement was that at the end of the evening or at the end of the event, we would touch bases. We'd come back together and we'd ask each other, how did that go? What did you see me doing that seemed to work, that seemed to resonate as I was talking with people? Give me some feedback, help me learn. So get yourself a wingwoman. Get yourself somebody who will go with you and be by your side, and will also, if they're more experienced in this area, they'll open doors for you. So these are some of the things you want to just practice, practice, practice. Okay. The next one is around overcoming common challenges. So these are common challenges that we often see that are faced by everyone when they're networking. And these apply in particular to women, because one of the things that sometimes happens is that we walk into environments and there are certain settings or certain contexts that may be, again, more male dominated, for example, or might actually be an environment that is more focused on technology, and maybe that's not a topic per se that you're comfortable with just yet. So one of the things that we want to do is to be sure that we're comfortable just walking into the room and developing our own presence in that room. And so you'll see that these elements around bias, for example, that may pre-exist in a space or a context that you're walking into, being able to have your own personal brand. Who are you when you walk in? How do you choose to dress? How do you choose to show up? You want to be conscious about these things. These things leave impressions, okay? And then again, how you can really build that resilience through practice, really getting in there and getting feedback. This is where mentors can be phenomenally powerful and helpful as well, all right? A pro tip here is that you want to continue to evolve yourself. So who you are early in your career, as you're getting to know people, and maybe your networking has more to do with finding opportunities for you and your career, versus later in your career where your networking may have to do with sharing and exchanging of knowledge and information and being seen as a thought leader in particular topics. So you want to continue to evolve yourself as your career is evolving as well, and also as your brand is evolving. Okay, so these are some of the things that you can do to overcome those common challenges that we often face in networking. All right, next area is around balancing networking with other professional and personal commitments. Look, we all have busy lives. We are all up to some really big and exciting things. So how do you balance all of it? How do you get this piece around networking, which you're here because you know this is important and it's something important to you. How do you balance that with everything else going on? And important, how do you make it meaningful? So networking in its most effective is a very meaningful and deliberate action. Identifying those areas and those groups that may be most relevant for you, what you can contribute, and what you're seeking to achieve. All right. So we want to think about it from that standpoint. Choose those groups, choose those topics that are relevant for you, that you're passionate about. Okay. Think about what those are and then schedule your networking activities. Put a little something in there if it's getting up early in the morning and going to visit with the Rotary Club in your local area, or the Better Business Bureau if they've got a group there. So being able to connect with those kinds of groups as well. Schedule that time, put it on your calendar, and to the best of your ability, make it a non-negotiable. Just put yourself out there. Now, again, why I would say make it a non-negotiable is you may go to the event, you may find that the right people aren't quite in the room. They're not resonating for you. You're not resonating for them. And you find maybe the topics really aren't in line with where you want to go. Remember our first quote, it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know. All right. So no networking event is a lost cause, so to speak, right? Every networking event has opportunities. You are sharing yourself and you're sharing what you know, and you're sharing what you're passionate about and what you're out to achieve. So tick that box. That's great. Now, it may again not be the right group for you to continue on with. That's awesome. You've made that decision. You've developed more of your ability to discern the types of groups you connect with. What you do want to do then is prioritize those high impact events, those events that you can plug into that are aligned. And you keep asking, does anyone know this particular group? Does anyone have any ideas, suggestions on groups that I might be able to join, or where I might be able to go and meet people and network? All right. So we think about it from that standpoint. So balance really has to do with leveraging those best fit opportunities and sharing what you know and what you're out to create. And then people will carry that message for you. And then set time limits. Again, this is about quality, not quantity. So we want time limits that are built on this. If you plan to go for an hour, you go for an hour and you excuse yourself, even if the event is carrying on. All of this will help you develop confidence as well, and it will deliver a really important message for you about your brand. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. So the next area has to do with developing and utilizing digital platforms for networking. LinkedIn is probably the big platform at this stage. LinkedIn being that platform that most people, when they meet you, they will pretty quickly go and see what your presence looks like on LinkedIn. So definitely you want to optimize your LinkedIn profile. What does that mean? There's more of a social environment that's starting to take place in LinkedIn, which is fine. There are opportunities for you to do postings. There are also opportunities for you to be able to contribute to articles that have been posted. I've received a number of those invitations where articles have been posted. LinkedIn looks at my profile, sees my background, and says, hey, are you interested in commenting on this particular article that's just been posted? So LinkedIn is also looking at what your presence looks like and is helping to facilitate your networking. This is where you want to make sure you've optimized your LinkedIn profile. So put information in there that's relevant. Share those positions that you've held previously, those volunteer positions that you've held, projects and things that you've worked on in school that have had an impact. You want to put those elements in your LinkedIn profile, a little bit about who you are. What's your philosophy? What's important to you? These are the types of things that I see that really help to optimize that LinkedIn profile. Now, in addition to that, I also encourage you to ask people for their endorsement. inside of LinkedIn. You can have them endorse you. You can have them share a little bit about, and that helps again in giving credibility, and it helps to build your network. Now, inside of the digital platform, it really is just building a network of people who know people. That's the starting point. However, like I mentioned, the tool, the platform itself is really geared to help people network more effectively, to help people have a voice and share what's important and what they can contribute. So this is where we want to leverage it even more so. So for example, engage in those online discussions. The example that I gave you, where they've reached out to me and they said, hey, this article, and it seems to match some of the stuff in your profile. Are you interested? And literally, it's a 5-minute, let me just share a perspective on this particular article or this particular element in the article. All right. So leverage those opportunities to engage in these online discussions. It's that engagement that builds familiarity, and it's the engagement that people remember. Leverage that. In addition, join relevant industry groups. So if you're interested in going into an industry, and I touched a little bit earlier on industries that are still more male dominated, right? In the sciences and technologies, that just is the fact. And so there's nothing wrong with it. It's how do we navigate in that environment as women? And vice versa. There are some industries that are more female dominated. For example, human resources still has a very heavy female presence in that particular profession. And there are some phenomenal experienced men moving into that environment. So knowing how to enter into those environments from any perspective is important. And this is where you can join relevant industry groups, get to know the language, get to know people, see who are some of the top thought leaders, and get yourself introduced. Reach out, ask to be connected, have those opportunities, and take advantage. Don't be shy. Ask for those opportunities to connect. And then you want to follow up with connections. Now, following up with connections can sometimes seem daunting as well. I get it. This is where sometimes it's just as little simple, hi, thinking of you. Hi, it was great chatting, and looking forward to connecting sometime in the future. Little simple things with the in-mail that LinkedIn offers, and then even on their profiles. So just little quick touch points. Now, following up can sound daunting. Again, as I mentioned, here's a powerful thing. If you follow up periodically, if you've left an impression, if you've given, so you've shared content, you've shared perspective, so you've given into the conversation, you will leave that lasting impression. And I had a great example of a couple of months ago. I reached out to an executive recruiter, and he and I had not seen each other or talked to each other in probably 6 years. It had been quite some time. We had some work that we did together about 10 years ago, and we maintained a bit of a contact there. And then 6 years went by, as it can quite quickly. And so I had an opportunity, and I thought, who would be somebody really great for this particular role? And I reached out to him, and I was able to reach out to him directly because we had established some connection previously. And he answered my call like that. He picked it up. He said, yep, I get it. I'm with you. I love the work you're doing. And how can I help? And he was immediately plugged in. So these are some of the things. Again, don't feel like you need to follow up or be connected continually in order to maintain these relationships, but do take advantage of just the periodic. If somebody crosses your mind, drop them a quick email. Or if you have their phone number, if they cross your mind, shoot them a quick text. Be proactive, be courageous, and have fun with it. All right. And then be selective, because there will be people who are going to be reaching out to you. And you're going to find that there may be some people that are reaching out for sales or for marketing. Nothing wrong with that, again. But if it's not in your wheelhouse, if it's not what you're looking for, if it's not somebody you've established a relationship with or that you're comfortable with, that's okay. Don't feel obligated. All right. So be brutally selective around it and cultivate those relationships that really fit for you and fit for them. All right. Next piece, and we'll wrap with this. So around navigating male-dominated industries. And I know, as the title said, this networking is for women. And of course, all of these pieces really do apply regardless. But let's talk a little bit about navigating male-dominated industries throughout and through networks and how you can really do that. First off, one of the things that I found is extremely important is being able to identify allies and advocates. So who are those people, regardless, that they just want you to win? They care. And they've kind of taken you under their wing. They want you to be successful. Maybe there's somebody like that you can already think of. And it might be somebody, it might be a professor from school if you're early in your career. It might be somebody who's a couple years your senior if you're early again also in your career. Or it might be somebody who's in a senior executive position and very similar. They may be closer to the end of their career and nearing retirement or going into consulting, and they want to give back. So you want to identify who are your allies, who are your advocates, and really partner up with them, buddy up with them, let them know what you're interested in doing. If you want to go into robotics, talk to them about it. You want to go into robotics, if you want to go into pharma, if you want to go into genetics, if you want to go into AI, you want to go into any of these areas, talk to them about it. Pick their brain, get some ideas. Even if they are not in those networks themselves, odds are high that they will have people that are in those networks. Remember, it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know. All right? So talk about that with them and see, who do they know? Can they make some introductions? Again, LinkedIn is phenomenal for this. If you look at what their connections are, often you can ask them to make a connection right there. All right. Also, the industry associations, as we talked a little bit about before, but I also want to touch on this aspect of what I call cross-gender mentorships. Why I think these are phenomenally powerful and really important at any stage in our careers is that it helps give different perspectives. So as we talk about diversity, as an example, if you build your mentor team as a team that has different perspectives, multiple perspectives, you will be doing yourself a fabulous favor. You will actually be able to broaden your perspective on things. And I know that sounds pretty straightforward. And here's what's super cool about it is that by building these cross-gender mentorships or these cross-cultural mentorships, just building these mentorships that cover a broad diversity of perspective, you will also deepen not only your appreciation for the differences in perspective, but ultimately you will make yourself a more effective participant in your business, in your organization, in your career. The best executives, the most senior people in organizations are those people who can actually see from multiple perspectives and leverage those multiple perspectives to help come up with answers that solve world problems. So take advantage of that. Be intentional about building those cross-gender, cross-diversity mentorships as well. And then you want to showcase your expertise confidently. So when you show up in the room, regardless of who's in the room, I've had experiences where I'm the only woman in the room. And when I show up confidently around those areas that I'm an expert in, it helps establish my place in that room. And I become known as someone that people can come to. And it's about the knowledge that we bring and the perspective that we bring. So definitely go in, challenge the stereotypes, challenge them constructively, take advantage of this and really step into it. I'll give a pro tip here as we're wrapping up. That pro tip is around balancing feminine and masculine. My early career was all in male-dominated environments. It was in manufacturing, it was in the semiconductor world, and it was in a space where these were places, sometimes I was the only woman in the room. I started to see blind to that. And one of the things that I found was really important was that I needed to stay in touch with what are some of those aspects that I could uniquely bring to the conversation from a feminine or a woman's perspective, and those aspects that I could understand and I could also bring forward from a masculine perspective. So I won't go deep into those energies. There's plenty of more out there that you can read on, you can kind of bring up. The goal here in the pro tip is balance. So where we can balance those two elements, some of the best CEOs, my opinion, some of the best CEOs, whether they are male or female, the best CEOs have brought a combination of those two elements, those energies, into their process, into the way that they relate to their organizations, and they create phenomenal, unwavering followership as a result. So definitely seek to do that as you're entering into any industry, and certainly as you're entering into male-dominated industries if you're a woman. All right, so let me leave you with a couple of references. I really appreciate you joining today. And as we go into part two, we'll talk a little bit more some of the other areas, and there are a number of other areas that we're going to focus on. Here are a few things that I want to give you in terms of references and where you can learn more. And I wanted to curate some of the best books that I've read in this particular area as well. So first off, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a classic. It is one of those that if you haven't had a chance to pick it up off the shelf and just read through this one, it really is timeless. And it's got some great practical advice on how to just build those relationships and influence people positively, how to go about doing that. Another one is Never Eat Alone and Other Secrets to Success. So this is, Keith Ferrazzi. This is a fun read. It's a really nice one about, if you're going to, literally, as the title says, if you're going to go out to lunch, grab a friend, grab a buddy, grab someone maybe you haven't spent much time with, and go grab lunch together and sit and talk and share. All right. Hear what's important to them. This is how a lot of informal networking gets done. So coffee, lunch, getting together with people. This book really does focus in on the informal aspects of networking. The Go-Giver, another phenomenal, great, it's a fast read. And this one really talks about an element that is often overlooked, and that is that the best networking and the best networkers actually give. So they give before they get. They give with the intention of being of service. And we hear this sometimes in terms of the styles of leadership that are most effectively. So The Go-Giver is one of those books that just really reminds us that if you can walk into the room saying, what can I offer this person? How can I help them be successful? How can I find out what's important to them? How can I support them? If you go in with that mindset, that orientation, then results are going to come back to you, and they'll come back to you in ways that maybe you don't even expect. So I highly encourage, if you're going to look at any one of these 4 books here, I would go after The Go-Giver as the starting point, actually. It's one of my favorites. And then the last is The Art of Networking, Beyond the Handshake. So this particular book really does focus on, what happens after. And you've connected with people, but how do you maintain that? How do you create meaningful connections and continue to leverage those connections? So this is another phenomenal book as well that I highly encourage you to take a look at. Let's talk about our next session. So our next session is going to be a deep dive into 4 additional areas. You may feel like we already touched on everything that has to do with networking, but let's go ahead and let's just talk about what these 4 are. And I'm looking forward to having you back in our next session. So next one is going to be networking for introverted women. This is a unique category. And for introverted women, just the sheer thought, when I put my first piece of information up there and I said, get on the stage and practice presenting, I'm sure a lot of you probably cringed. Introverted women probably really cringed on that one. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about networking for introverted women and how to make it successful. I will tell you, I'm an introvert. So there are definitely things that can be done, how you can get in the room, how you can be successful with it, and how you can feel really good about it and enjoy it. The next is going to be around the role of networking in career advancement. So specifically in the space of career advancement, what are some of the things that I want you to focus on so that you can be successful with your networking? Early stages of networking and once you have momentum. This touches a little bit also on how do you maintain this and how do you balance? But there are certain phases in networking, going from that small talk aspect, that early, and how do you kind of practice listening more than talking and be able to really get curious and see what's going on with the other person and listen for those opportunities to share what do you know and how can you help. And then lastly, we'll take a look at what to do after networking has occurred and what comes next. All right, I look forward to seeing you in our next session. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And I really, really do appreciate you taking the time and you investing in yourself to accelerate your networking and your networking success. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.